is Kelly Wheeler, and my role here at Peace River is I'm called a clubhouse generalist.
My name is Cindy Roberts-Morey. I'm the program manager for the Community Action Treatment Team.
My name is Carmen Walker, and I'm the director of Club Success.
My name's Eric. I'm a licensed mental health counselor, and I'm an outpatient therapist.
Basically, a typical day is coming in, working in the particular unit that you're assigned to at the time. So I come up and get things ready for the members and instantly engage them with me on the tasks that I'm doing.
So again, CAT team is a whole team of people. But we all meet together every day and talk about our clients, talk about cases, to talk about what's going on, and then the rest of the team typically goes out into the field and makes visits and contacts.
So a typical day at Club Success is a lot. There's always a lot going on, and so I'm kind of in the mix of that. We have people working on cooking lunch, we have a bank open, a cafe, people up in clerical working on billing and things like that, and so I'm wherever the wind blows.
Well, I get there in the morning and I have slots on my schedule allocated for my individual therapy clients. These are returning clients whom I've seen or been seeing for a while who are just getting ongoing services. I have a couple slots throughout the week designated for people who are getting what is called an intake done. So that's when I get their history, what they feel like they're struggling with, get a picture of what's going on, I give them a diagnosis, and so we start the process of beginning their therapy. And I have 2 days out of the week for a half of the day where I take what are called walk-ins, where basically anyone who wants to come in to initiate mental health services shows up. I see them for about 15 minutes, get a picture of what's going on, and they get set up for an intake.
I wish more people would understand that there's nothing wrong with getting help. When we have a problem, we get help. If we go have a medical problem, we go to the emergency room or we go to a doctor. So I wish more people could accept help sooner.
I guess I just wish people understood more about mental health and the stigma that's associated with it. You know, in the media, all you see is scary, violent things happening, but that is just not the reality. That might be a small percentage, but most people are kind, and if you pass them on the street, they'd probably be more scared of you than you are of them.
I think one of the big ones is that therapists are not miracle workers. Or if someone comes in that's got a recurrent issue with their mood or thoughts, that after talking to me once, that somehow I'll fix the whole thing. I can't read minds. I only know what people tell me, and for the most part, I'll just believe what you go with. But yeah, it's the big thing that I'm not like all powerful. I'm a regular dude. I eat, sleep, just like everyone else.
I had a lot of trauma as a child. My father shot himself in the head when I was 7 because my mother was leaving him. He was 28, I was 7. My mother has lived her whole life with mental illness, never been treated. 13, I decided no one's going to save me but me. Those experiences with me shaped the direction that I went in. And I figured if I made it out of it, I sure as heck got something to share to help someone else.
Well, initially I was actually a martial arts instructor. I had a certification actually to be a chief instructor with one of the largest martial arts organizations in the world. As much as I enjoyed it, and I think martial arts are great fun, I never really felt like that was like a long-term thing to do. And so eventually for a while I worked at my church for a bit and kind of found that I leaned a lot more towards helping people with individual stuff. And so here I am.
hardest aspect.
I believe that everybody can be helped, but sometimes people have been doing things their way so long that it is so difficult to help them change. They don't believe it's possible, they're afraid to trust, they're afraid to try. So I think the most difficult part of my job is, in some cases, motivating change.
It's definitely hard when you can see so much potential in someone, and that person just has so many gifts and strengths that they don't see themselves, I guess, blossoming to what they could be. That's always hard.
Seeing people take charge of their own recovery and actually getting that message and not being angry about it.
When people absolutely change, when we see people come in the door one way, and by the time they go out the door, they're a completely different person. That is my favorite thing of all time.
I think it's more having a broader perspective on people in general. One of the things that, like, I've done a lot of training outside of just my degrees, and the lady that did the training, she told us a bit of a story that I'll paraphrase, but the idea was that you have to learn to be empathetic towards the abusive parent as well as the abused child, because there's a perspective there that if you just jump to a conclusion too quickly, you'll miss. So it's given me the capacity to be a lot more patient and gracious with people, even though, you know, they may have made this mistake or done this thing or said something really horrible or done something that was just genuinely very bad. It's also given me a little bit more insight into things I can deal with and things I really can't deal with, and how to respond to people in a way that's, you know, caring and at least respectful or loving without losing, you know, all semblance of order in myself.
For one, given me hope. We can never predict who's gonna be helped. There are people that it seems like it's gonna be very difficult to help them, but then you see them get helped. So I have a lot of hope for all kinds of people, and also just an understanding that people are people, and anyone can be in any situation at any time. So we all need help at times.
I think just experiencing things firsthand. You know, you can read things in a textbook and learn as much as possible on your own, but when you actually meet people and hear their stories, it's just completely different. I think I had empathy before, but it was more of a feeling, I guess, whereas now that empathy is more real and founded in truth and experiences.
I have the utmost respect for folks that suffer with mental illness. Mental illness has no prejudice. It's across all walks of life, all nationalities. All of us have it in our life in some aspect. The aspect of my utter respect for folks who live in their truth and can treat and seek out resources to help themselves.
Strength and compassion, I would say. I definitely, because of this field, have a lot of understanding. And I think when we understand things, we can have more compassion. And so I have come to a lot more understanding about mental illness, and so I have a lot of compassion.
I moved here 2 years ago from Pennsylvania. Something I did up in Pennsylvania for about 4 years was I went out in the community and I taught on what is a wellness toolbox. Think about a regular toolbox, okay? It's full of our tools. We get a hammer out to pound the nail in. We get a screwdriver out to screw a screw in. Well, I go to people and I say, we need to develop a wellness toolbox. And Tell me what you do to keep yourself well. And we start identifying those things. Well, I journal. Well, I walk. I take my meds. And I write them down. All those, and we should be able to keep growing in our lives, all our lives, adding to that wellness toolbox.
Well, I think part of it is just doing it. I think once we kind of bridge that gap, once we open that conversation, then good things will come from it, but it's hard to start that conversation, so just doing it.
I think that should be just as normal as any other conversation you would have with a person. I think the biggest key to especially destigmatizing mental illness and mental health diagnosis in general is that people have to have a person that they care about to attach to it. Otherwise, there's no buy-in, there's no reason to think differently. But if you're like, well, I know so-and-so and they're pretty cool, but they have, bipolar disorder. Or, oh, I know this person with depression and, they are pretty cool to be around. Just in the course of being around people who they see and know and like, and then discovering, oh, I have a mental health diagnosis, I want to talk about it. And then for people who don't have a diagnosis, that have a concern for trying to build awareness around it, just in your day-to-day conversations, finding very normal ways to bring it up and to not make it overly abrasive or just a weird thing. I think the more normal we approach the topic, the more easy it is to discuss it.
It's manageable, but you have to work at it. Anything we work at is manageable.
I think that there's no shame in mental illness. There's no shame. Everybody has different problems. Somebody gets a broken leg, somebody gets a broken arm. People are born with defects. There's no shame in mental illness.
Mental illness might be a part of that person, but it's not everything, and it's not even the majority. It's just a part, and there's so many other parts of that person that they have to offer, and so we shouldn't label people or put them in a box because we just have no idea the capabilities of a person.
If you find out that someone has had a mental health issue, one of the worst things you can do is treat them, differently because of that information. I think taking the whole person into account and being willing to get some insight on what they experienced might help you to moderate your response. And if they don't want to talk about it with you, leave them alone. Unfortunately, there's still a lot of stigma surrounding someone coming to see a therapist, let alone having a diagnosis or getting ongoing services. So I think if you find out someone's doing anything like that, just don't treat them strangely because of it. Leave them alone. If they want to talk to you about it, great, but just listen. Don't jump to conclusions, and just take into account what you know about the person as well as just this. Not just sort of go, oh, you see a therapist? I have to be awkward around you now. Don't do that. It's terrible. Don't do that ever.